Chris Cashman on the line. It looks like he's actually lined up and ready to go.
He is
right now.
I just told him 5 minutes.
Can't wait.
Okay, so let's start it right at 2:30. But if you haven't already, please go to our blog, where we have his call listed, and I'm just confirming this right now. In fact, we do. So please go to the blog, throw your comments or questions in there, and we will pass them on as soon as we get him on the line.
Ian, do you want to tell us a little bit about Chris Cashman? You seem very excited.
Yeah, no, actually, this is an interesting thing. Chris Cashman has been a hero of mine for quite a while, ever since he stopped doing that show on Xbox Live. 1 versus 100, yeah.
Last year.
Yeah, Corey and I just fell into that game, fell in love with it, fell in love with him, fell in love with his Kiwi and his lifestyle, and decided to follow him on Twitter. And I made some sort of comment to him about him being magnificent. He said I was very wise, and I said, hey, you're a guy who does things. Why not come do a thing for De5ertBus? And he, to my surprise, said, yes. So I said, okay, I should probably put you in contact with people who might be able to make that happen. And that was Matt and Kathleen who made that happen. So God, I hope you didn't hear that.
Well, I don't have him on the line.
But yeah, he's an auctioneer. He is a former host of 1 versus 100 on Xbox Live, and just all around hoopy fruit who always knows where his towel is. I'm assuming.
Why is anything like that exist?
There's nothing that comes out of the ocean that I don't know.
I don't know if there's something would work. You might need a back.
Anything is fine. Water, juice.
All right, I'm walking out of the room to go get Ian something to drink.
Who's the guy I need to watch out for?
I don't know. That's the problem.
Okay.
He should say I'm the one who asked for Moon Indigo. So while I'm out of the room, Ian's gonna watch, and then I'll be back in a second once I get him a drink. Do you want anything I get you?
Anything at all? Thank you.
Also, Ian, I'm turning the control of this call over to you.
Oh, good
since you
lord.
have all sorts
So,
of.
can someone bring the microphone closer to Ian?
I can get in there. I don't have to lean back.
Well, let me turn that off first before you move.
I'll ask you if there are any questions.
There's 5 at the moment.
Holy. Well.
So now there's 7. Yay!
Yay! Please more questions so I don't make too much of a fool of myself.
Tell us another story.
Another story. Let's see. Get the so we can get the levels good here, I guess, is what I'm guessing with. Let's see here. Well, this is about the time when actually there's a song that I don't think we should be playing. Ooh, Soul Mania asked for Mood Indigo, paid for it and everything. Okay. Yeah. Soul Mania, can you just PM DB command? And if you don't know how to do that, you do a /MSG DB command, and we'll get back to you after this chat. Okay, yeah. Oddly enough, there's an unlucky song in my clan. You can hear my lungs. Excellent. Oh, fantastic! Good. And everything goes silent.
Chris, can you...
Hello?
Hi!
Who's there?
De5ertBus for Hope is there. Who's there?
Listen, if this is another one of those creditors, I told you I've made my final payment.
Do you have video, Chris, or should we just do this just voice?
Well, I've gussied up, so I hope there's video.
There isn't
I've
yet,
got
so
my
hit your
favorite
camera.
codpiece on, my favorite wig.
You could hit your camera button.
You know what?
It'll
Here we
save
go.
the
How about
video.
this? Let me hit that button.
There we go. It's coming through.
How's
Yes.
that? Mo better? Prototype. Bobblehead.
Oh,
Actually exists.
looking fantastic, sir.
Ian, first of all, thank you for sort of roping me into this. I know we probably don't have a lot of time to sit and chit chat because you probably have a lot of questions. There's got to be more than 5 or 7 questions
Let's
that
hope
are
so.
posted on the message board. So you probably there's got to be more than 8. So I'm sure you've just got to start firing them at me here.
Well, they've got me driving the bus here, but first of all, actually, for those, in case I did a terrible job of introducing you, how'd you like to introduce
No, you did a marginal job. I was watching. You did a margin. I don't know how I'd introduce me either. I was the host of that one thing. I'm that one guy from that one deal. But yeah, I mean, you said it. I was lucky enough to get to be the host of 1 versus 100 on Xbox Live, which hit me about the same way it hit most gamers, I think, out of left field. I didn't know really what that meant. I got a phone call one day saying, hey, would you be interested in hosting a game show? And that's sort of always been a thing that I thought I would like to do, like on TV and whatnot. Mm-hmm. And I said, sure. And then sort of my agent, business partner said, well, it's a video game show. And I said, all right, sounds cool. And so went through a bunch of auditions and, next thing, I got the game and I didn't really know what it meant until we started figuring it out and working it out, and it just kind of, I think like you, I perhaps at first didn't take it as serious as I should, and then got into it and went, wow, there's something here, this is cool, because like you, there was a lot of people who maybe, played it casually, and diehard gamers didn't really want to like it. People online were like, come on with this, a game show, and then they got hooked in, because usually it was like a friend wanted to play, or your girlfriend wanted to play, so the guy would deal with it and be like, all right, fine, and then they would discover how fun it was and how competitive it was. And that became the recurring thing, is people saying, I didn't want to like this at all. I wasn't into it, and I got hooked, and now I'm totally into it. Now I totally get it. So it was a really, really cool thing to be a part of.
No, it's just amazing. And the very fact that you managed to make a community out of it as well. I mean, I remember when I first popped in You Don't Know Jack a few months ago and decided to randomly look at the leaderboards. I noticed a lot of names in that I noticed from 1 versus 100. So.
Yeah, well, it was sort of this great idea that I think was perhaps too big for its britches. I think what it could have become and what it would be right now, I think, would be monstrous. And I think that it was one of those great opportunities. They said, let's do this. We jumped into it, and really it was very different from what it was initially by the time we ended it, even over after a couple of seasons, because really it was this game show. I would pop in live every now and again. People could win Microsoft points, and let's start there. And very quickly, because my background was in TV and in radio, I kept thinking, I saw what this was, and I went, wow, this is kind of both things coming together. It's a little bit radio, it's a little bit TV, and the gaming experience makes it legitimately interactive. People are sitting there pressing the buttons, which when you do TV or your radio or even what you're doing right now, you don't literally get direct feedback from people. Although this is different. I mean, here we are a couple years later, so you do get people writing in right now. But from my history in TV and radio, you would maybe meet somebody on the street who'd say, "Hey, I saw that one thing you did. That's cool," and that was it. We didn't have message boards and things the way we do now in the last couple of years, where it's become crazy and instantaneous, and with Twitter and all of that. So to immediately see responses and to sort of propose things, I would say to my producer, why don't we ask for emails? Do we have an email? Can we set up an email? And so by the next week we set up an email account. And I said, let's just see what happens. If I say, email us, liveshow@xbox.com, and then all of a sudden they would turn the screen around to the window and I would see this inbox and it would just start all but crashing. We'd have like 3,000 emails immediately. And it really was this kind of goosebumpy experience where I thought, wow, unlike TV and radio and stuff where you have to, it really is a guesstimate. Ratings are really totally not accurate. They kind of take a number and then they compound it and all of that. This was legitimate. I had a ticker in front of me. I could see how many people were playing live, and it was rolling over like a car odometer. It was just going, and I'd see 10,000, 13,000. I'd keep talking for a little while. All of a sudden I'd look over and it'd say 18,000. I'd look over and it'd say 23,000. I'd look over and say 40,000. It was really hard to not get caught up in the fact that I was really sort of able to connect like never before with people, and to know that they were there on purpose. They had logged in, they could send emails. I think I upped the ante the next week and said, hey, don't just email us. What does your setup look like? Who are you gaming with? I want to see you. Send me a photo, because I realized, hey, everybody, this is a couple of years, 3 years ago. So I said, a lot of you can do it on your phones now, which is like obvious. But, a couple of years ago, people were just getting into cell phones and all that, and the video the way they do now. So I said, let's just see it. Let's see if people will email in photos. And the inbox went crazy, and I started to see you know, two guys sitting together having fun. Then I'd see somebody with a giant TV. Then I'd see a whole family. I'd see what is clearly the dad and the uncle and the mom and the kids and the dog and people playing. And it was really this, I don't know, I just sort of felt myself getting dumbstruck by the whole thing, because it really was like I had no idea. I mean, I guess you think you imagine who's playing and who's on the other end, but to get to see them was spectacular. And then to get to eventually up the ante and say, hey, why don't we have guests? Because all that was not a part of the original plan. And, you know, I'm not trying to, you know, spill their secrets, but there was definitely some pushback when I said, hey, why don't we have guests? Why don't we have people call in? Why don't we take phone calls? You know, there's sort of some like, we're not sure about that and how that would, you know, so without getting too into detail, I sort of forced that issue a little bit and said, no, we gotta have, you know, guests. This is part of what's neat about this. We could take phone calls. I mean, we could do a contest, and I could call a winner, you know, wherever they might be. The phone's going to pick up, and it's going to be Xbox Live calling their house. And to me, I just thought this will be such a cool moment in technology. We got to do this. And so we started doing it, and it became a regular thing. And I think they started to understand too how neat this was to be able to actually call some of the gamers at their house, and sometimes even we'd pre-call them the way they do on radio shows just to make sure they were there, you know, and in a clean connection and things like that. But one of the ones that I don't think you guys ever heard it live, because I think it was before we went live, but we called a winner and, you know, and I just hear the phone ringing, of course, and they turn up my mic and I'll talk to whoever answers and try to say, you know, hey, you there? Cool. Stand by. We want to talk to you. And it was a mom who answered clearly, and, you know, hello. And I said, hi. You know, like, and I think we usually have gamer tags, but we can usually also tell who you are. So I think I just said, you know, like, hey, is Colin there? Yes. Can I ask who's calling? And I sort of had this moment of, what do I say here? And I said, Xbox Live. And she went, okay, hang on. Almost like without skipping a beat. It was, hang on. Colin! Xbox Live is on the phone! Xbox Live is on the phone! What do you mean? They're on the phone! Pick up the phone! Pick up the phone! It was one of those calls, you know, where the mom's yelling and she didn't understand. And finally it was like, hello? You know, I said, Colin, it's Chris Cashman, 1 versus 100. Oh, Mom, hang up. What? Mom, hang up! It was so priceless. I just had like tears in my eyes because I went, this is so great. You know, because people really didn't know how this worked. I didn't know how it worked, you know, and then we took that a step further and started saying, what if we have guests, like celebrities or, you know, from you know, so we had Joel McHale come on right as he was getting ready to launch Community and all of that. Then we had, and then we realized, hey, we can sort of weave in pop culture with the games, and then we could have people like Cliff Bleszinski call in, and we could have people like Felicia Day came. She flew in Seattle and came in the studio with me. And we sat there and did the game together, you know, and it's almost like it happened so fast that I look back now and go, wow, that was, and I'd say this, I've said it to a lot of people, that is probably the coolest, doing that game is probably the coolest thing in show business that I'll ever do. I mean, I get to do TV and radio stuff, and, you know, I've been lucky enough to get to, you know, interview big celebrities or whatever through some of these things. But to me, I look back and I go, no, I still feel like if I had to line everything up and said, you only get to pick one avenue to go down, which one of these are you going down, I would have said Xbox, because it was so spectacular what we were doing. Like I said, it was the combination of TV, radio, games, and then all of a sudden pop culture and celebrities were coming in. I could see the lights going on the bosses of Xbox going, wait a minute, we can promote our products this way. We can have game designers and game celebrities and, you know, people like Felicia Day who were sort of crossing over. And I really felt like we were having this eureka moment of, we're onto something here.
It's really quite
I get how this works.
It sounds like you're actually, oddly enough, the if I may say, old media person, dragging Xbox Live kicking and screaming into this new world of interactivity with their fans.
I mean, you know, I don't want to go that far, but I mean, they certainly had this idea. They initiated it, but they did hire folks from TV essentially to steer it. My producer was a guy who came from TV, from MTV and Nickelodeon, and you know, and then he leaned on me, and a lot of it was me and him fighting for these, you know, TV or broadcast, general entertainment portions that we wanted to bring into it. We said, you know, okay, we're doing the game, it's live, we're doing the questions, that's great, but let's give them more. And like I said, the biggest pain to me now is just knowing what it could have become. Because again, if you ask me now, or even if you asked me back then, hold, you're on pause. You can only go one direction. Which one are you going? Are you going to follow your TV life? Are you going to follow radio? Are you going to follow that? I would have said Xbox Live, because I saw that live dashboard and what it was becoming, and I would find myself explaining it to older generations like my parents and beyond, what it was, and they didn't quite get it because Xbox is such a